first thing is that when it comes to sadness, emptiness, loneliness, all of these emotions, one of the things that you could do, and I would advise people to do this, is to explore the emotions a little bit. Sometimes people are like, oh yeah, let me just suppress the emotions, or let me just try and get away from them or move from them or whatever, right? One of the things you want to do is you want to kind of try and like understand your emotions, try and explore the emotions. And so like imagine if I'm feeling like that, what you could do is you could ask yourself, why am I feeling like this? Okay, right? So for example, you might start, if I said to you, how are you feeling or what are you feeling? And you're like, I feel empty. Okay, then I would say to myself, okay, I feel empty. Why do I feel empty? I feel empty because like there's a massive sense of loss. Okay, why is there a massive sense of loss? Because you know, I lost lots of money. So why does that mean loss for you? Well, because it limits what I can do in the future. Okay, so why do you feel like that about limitation? Oh, because I can't do what I want to do. I'm not. So like explore the emotions around it. That's one thing, right? And then the second thing is that when something happens, every time anything happens, you have to give it a meaning. You have to put a story to it, right? And the story that you tell yourself, it will affect the way you feel about it. So now if you look at the situation of a mother passing away, this is one of the biggest tragedies that can happen to a human being. Okay, so going through this tragedy, you could say it's a tragedy. It's one of the biggest, saddest things that you can ever happen. The person that gave you birth is no longer around, right? This is like a huge tragedy. But then at the same time, like think about if you died before your mother, may Allah protect you, right? Imagine if you died, like what state would you have met Allah in if you did that? Okay, now if that happened, maybe you would be much further from Allah. Maybe you wouldn't have some of the deeds that you had, right? So even in a tragedy, Allah can have mercy on you in that tragedy. And this is why the Prophet said, he said about the situation, strange is the situation of the believer. When something good happens to him, he is grateful to Allah, Alhamdulillah. And when something bad happens to him, he is patient and is made good for him. And the problem is that we're always looking from being in the emotion and in the situation. Whereas if we were looking from outside, then it's very different. I'll give you an example. One of my friends, I met him on the weekend, right? And this guy, he got made redundant from work. Now, I want you to imagine when you're a young person who gets that you've gone through so much effort to finally find a job, and you do that job for a little while, and then you get made redundant. And I remember when he got made redundant, you know, you feel very sad, you feel hopeless, you feel desperate, you feel negative, you feel all these things, okay? But guess what? After he got made redundant, the next job he got was contracting, and in contracting he was getting paid like £200-400 a day. And so for the next 5, 6, 7 years, he then worked as a contractor. He earned more money than he's ever earned in his life. He bought houses, he bought cars, he bought watches, he bought everything. He bought his parents a house. He got to the next level. He felt like this was terrible, this was painful, this was the worst thing. But now that he got to the end point, or near the end point, he's like, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And that's why when Muslims, when we're telling ourselves the stories about the moment, we need to make sure the stories are not up to the dunya point. Because if I just think about, okay, I went out to help this brother and then I lost £400 because I went out to help this brother, or I broke my car. If I see it just from this dunya perspective, it's depressing. But if I realize, well, I went out with a good intention, I wanted to help my brother, and Allah says whoever helps the brother is going to have this, he's going to have that. So I went out with that intention. I don't get the benefit in this dunya, but in the akhirah, Allah is waiting for me with reward. It changes the way I feel about the situation. So I'm saying, if you really, really want to change the way you feel about these situations, all you need to do is tell yourself a better story, change the story that you're telling yourself about these things, and inshallah that will start to change the way you feel. Sometimes you have to keep telling yourself that story. Sometimes you have to keep going with it, keep believing it. And this is what I'm saying, suddenly it comes back to Iman. Why? Because if you believe what the Prophet ﷺ is telling you, that if you are patient, it will be made good for you, then you can't lose. You just need to maintain that patience, and it will definitely be good for you, inshallah.